Welcome to Cmd+AI, the show where we press Command F on the internet's weekly AI news. My name's Samuel Gregory.
And I am Kabarza, and we are here to decode the weekly chaos in AI, web design, and development. This week, we have Perplexity launches Comet, the AI browser that actually does your work for you. Microsoft Edge goes full AI mode while Chrome sleeps at the wheel. Claude Code gets sub-agents. Your AI assistant now has its own AI team. Cursor 1.3 drops with shared AI terminal. Coding just got collaborative. China's GLM-4.5 claims it can beat Claude for Opus, but can it really? The app's epic security fail, how 72,000 private photos ended up on 4chan, but we'll get into all of this week's, we'll get into all of this on this week's episode.
Smooth. Yeah. And you'll notice we have a special guest with us. I'd like to welcome onto the show Max from Warm Wind. Do you want to give a little intro there, Max?
Thank you for having me. I'm quite literally unprepared here. So I only have 30 minutes time, but I hope, as fast as I can, or as spontaneous as I came over your podcast, I think as spontaneously we can do this today.
Yeah, I'm sure we can figure it out. I will share my screen and we'll get into the weekly news because Comet has finally launched. We've spoken about Comet in the past, which I think is probably the thing that turned us on to Warm Wind and with Dia and all the rest of it. And this is an AI browser that the Max users, which were paying $200 a month, have been testing, but we've now launched it and it's got a really nice space theme. And it does the job of, which I think is something that Dia. Are you familiar with Dia, Max? Do you know?
Yeah.
Something that they've not launched with, which I was particularly excited about, is the agentic thing. You can actually ask it to do stuff and it will go off and it will respond to emails and this and that and the other. And, there's a quick shortcut to summarize pages. And if we scroll down here, it's got a nice little, I like this website, to be honest, but ultimately it's kind of bringing that agentic stuff into the browser. Now we have Max here, we talk about Warm Wind and this kind of the opposite side of it, which to give an insight into those who haven't heard or whatever, Warm Wind is like an operating system. Is that right, Max? It's not a browser, it's actually a layer up from that.
Yeah. Well, the community is still debating if we can call it an operating system, but do. So for everything except a custom kernel, this is an operating system. And we're basically one layer above, as you told. We're doing it in a more general way, basically.
And I think I like the thing that I like that Comet cannot do is this idea that you used an example of an old real estate app that just looks awful, and Warm Wind can actually go in and use that system because it can see the interface or whatever. It's not restricted by what's in the browser.
Yeah, definitely. Not. I don't want to give you a feeling I want to trash on Comet because I think it's a phenomenal product and I probably going to use it myself in the future. But I think it's a completely different use case from my perspective, because obviously a Comet is something you would use if you have a demand now. So you would like to have your emails answered or whatever. And it's highly dependent on your machine. So your laptop has to be on, and while that's on and you have the browser open, it's working. I think that's how it goes, right? Or is it? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the whole thing how I like to discriminate what we're doing is everything that's not on demand. So basically background tasks. You set it up once and then just it goes off and does things for you in the background while you're not even there. So typical tasks are more like whenever an email comes in, whenever a new order gets created, every day at 7 o'clock, every day at 9 o'clock. And because it's a completely independent operating system and it's spun up on its own server, so we have these microservers. And for every instance, like we call them spaces, a microserver gets created. You get the ownership of this microserver, and then it's doing things for you even while you're not online. So you would basically be able to shut off your PC because it has its completely own machine in which it can operate.
I've been using Comet the last day or so. Right, as soon as the email came in, I started using it. And what I did do is I was updating a CMS in Webflow, which is a browser-based. Are you familiar with Webflow?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, put the information from this web page and put it into the CMS in Webflow. And what I found is that it's reasoning about the web page, so it doesn't know which buttons to press. And a really interesting experiment came about, me playing around with it. Long story short, it couldn't figure out how to insert the information into Webflow, but it tried a bunch of stuff and ultimately failed, which then led me on to this idea that it is unless you get really good at prompting, it is quite it feels like it would be very good for background tasks as well. I just found that because it just doesn't know the web pages and it's trying to just figure out the whole picture and whatever and click certain buttons or whatever, that it's not going to save you time in the immediate future. It's just, again, it's a background thing. One thing that was really interesting that happened was I was doing some of the shorts that we were making for this show, and I was using Veed, which adds subtitles. And I just said, can you make all of because it did it in American English, so Zs instead of Ss and things like that. Can you do that? And I thought it was just going to go in and click the words and do a spell check or whatever. But I actually spoke to the AI agent in Veed and asked the AI. It's the AI that asked the AI to make that change, sort of thing. So it was really funny. But all that to be said, the background thing is certainly, I think, the way that these sort of things go. I don't suppose you've looked at this yet, Kabaza.
Well,
have you? I'll go on. Next one.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think we are also very, very hyped about this AI layering, because what is super interesting is obviously when you just want to get some information, ChatGPT web search is much faster than the agent going into browser and searching individual websites. So what we see a lot of users, have you used it? Have you access? Warmwind?
Which one?
Do you have access to our product?
No, not used it.
Okay, yeah, we can change that. So what a lot of users which are currently testing it is doing, also installing the offline app, or not offline, but the PC app for ChatGPT, and that this is the best way to get a lot of information quickly, because web search is always a lot slower. And what I think will happen in the very near future is that something like Arc or the Dia browser will also be just used inside our system. So AI is talking to AI.
What would interest me in that aspect is, do you guys only evaluate the visual aspects, or do you guys also, let's say, if you have a browser, you always also import the entire HTML into the context?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest differences. So we actually only use completely vision-based interaction. So there's no, because we don't work with a specific browser or anything. So we are not so deeply integrated in the browser. We are not only supporting web apps. We support everything that runs anywhere. So to be this general, you have to go to the layer where humans work. So completely visually, basically. And this allows for a lot more data and understanding to transfer over to the AI brain, basically. But I think what happens for Comet right now when you talk about the CRM tasks is because 1.5 years ago we also tested with HTML context or the DOM tree and looked at the HTML elements and how we could click on them. But as it turns out, the HTML page, this information lacks a lot of context, because only once you simulate the whole JSON JavaScript code, the whole HTML build up and rendering process, then the website gets created. And only after this whole creation process, things get into context. So you see, okay, this button is slightly over this image, so this means probably when I click this will open the image and not the thing below that. So there are a lot of clues which happen on a vision base, which you could not do just with a browser or with a code examination, basically.
Yeah, I would in that regard, I would be also interested in the following. Since we already heard the story now with this new browser from Perplexity where it fails to use the app properly, do you guys offer some kind of in-learning? So for initially, what I would imagine an app should do is scan an application, test around, and then create, let's say, a documentation on how to use the application. Do you guys already have something like this in place, or does it always have to relearn on how to use, let's say, Gmail?
You mean like real-time learning?
Yeah, like real-time
yeah.
learning, but in the aspect that it actually documents how to use an application and shares it with, let's say, next iterations, with like if you use the app again.
Yeah, definitely. So that's real test time or inference time, as I guess people who are familiar with AI call it. Learning is one of the biggest things you need to do if you want to support wide variety of apps for also businesses, like some random German business software. Like you cannot train the model to use that. So and there are already like SAP, there are already big software out there that is basically already for a human unusable if you don't get like a huge teaching session over multiple hours to use it. But what the AI will do is it just go on, tries different clicks there and there, and then is trying to remember what did lead to what. So it's trying to build up a internal understanding of the app. So that's learning which is coupled to specific applications it can use later on. So it's definitely able to explore and learn. And what we also do is we learn to optimize specific flows, because obviously most companies and most businesses, smaller businesses, also have very their workflows are quite good defined as far as they say, yeah, basically just do always the same thing again and again, like every day get all my emails, forward them specified to some different people or whatever, or get orders and put them to there or whatever. And in this case, the AI will, when it goes through these loops, it will sometimes do something wrong, and it will learn from what it has done wrong in the past, and will basically all the time reevaluate its own loop, as we call it, like it loops over one action to the next one. Because obviously, number one, we want it to work, but also if it does less things wrong, it costs us less, because it can use less actions to get to the same answer. And instead, when it clicks like 5 times wrong and has to go back, that's also just expensive for everybody.
I also this week I wanted to bring in Edge, bringing in this Copilot mode, which is the same AI browser discussion. It all does the same things. I don't think it's bringing anything different. And in fact, I think this is like the suggestion here that it might be like a paid for solution. It's free for like a limited time. And I didn't find anything really different that this browser actually did. It's just nice to see that it's coming. It does raise the question, though, around the fact that Chrome is kind of nowhere to be seen in all of these, even though, I mean, this is using Chromium, Perplexity using Chromium. They're all building these AI browsers, but except Chrome. So that's just an interesting discussion. The question I had about this, which I think Warmwind could be quite it could be sort of compared to is I have no idea where or what Copilot means with Microsoft. They seem to use it everywhere, right? But having said that, I don't know whether you know what Copilot is there, Max, but it's interesting that Chrome have released this AI browser, yet I believe that they've got the abstracted layer similar to Warmwind called Copilot as well that can kind of do all of this stuff anyway. So they've kind of, I don't know, is that right? Is that like a correct assumption on what Copilot on a Windows machine actually does?
Well, I guess realistically, Microsoft has a lot of chances to do amazing things with because obviously they're in control of their already very widely spread operating system. So yeah, it's obviously strange that I don't do it right as a as a typical user would basically go about it. I mean, basically, they're currently a fancy way to call custom functions for different apps. And so it mostly integrates into their own software, like PowerPoint, Excel, whatever, because they build in these custom functions which the LLM can call on a non-vision based way. So just calling basically functions in the background to execute them. But what is lacking, and I think what most people find frustrating, is that it's not connected as a layer across everything. It's more inside everything. And I guess or at least that's our thesis, it's more like an economical thing. Because if you look at Microsoft and a lot of different companies, how they are making money, I mean, at the end, you have to sell something to the customer. And so that's basically their product, like Microsoft Suite basically is their product. And obviously, an AI could just create, in a way much more efficient way, it could create a PowerPoint just with HTML, and then we create a PowerPoint from that. Or just because a PowerPoint is basically just a huge XML file. So it could just write this XML, and that would be PowerPoint. No need for a fancy application. So what they do is they or at least that's our thesis, they just put in their AI into all these products. So you're still inclined to buy these products, else they don't have anything to sell you. And for Google, it's a big problem from my understanding, that obviously they have to get ad revenue. That's their whole business model. And if you're an advertiser and you would see that Google Chrome is able to click on your ads, and you don't know, or is scrolling over your ads, and you get charged for them, whatever, but you don't know if the human is actually seeing them. I mean, that's also not the best thing. So like self cannibalization. But I mean, in the long run, they're all forced to go there. You have to drop some revenue or get a way to get to the end goal, because obviously it's. I think consumers know what the end result should be, and companies are finding it quite hard to go there without cutting all their revenue streams currently.
Yeah, for sure. You've just shared this, Kabaza. What is this?
I can maybe tell a bit about it. So Chrome has been doing a push for a while now that they also integrate LLMs on a browser level, like in an engine level. And we don't hear much about it right now because it's still experimental. But basically, browsers a couple of months ago, they already shipped like small LLM models which run locally in the browser, and Chrome is also in the game. That instead of trying to build an entire, like, let's say, app around it, which uses its own backend, from what it seems to me is Chrome is creating, let's say, like the Copilot from the APIs to create something like a Copilot inside of the browser game itself. So in the future, I can imagine many more people actually making use of these local AIs, and then also generating like these agent tools inside of the browser itself as Chrome extensions or other tools.
The best thing that Chrome could do is using Chrome OS, because Chrome OS is a very nicely built, very efficient way of using Android as an operating system for a lot of tasks, without all the strange things that come to Android, so multi-screen support and so on. But I feel like obviously now nobody is using Chrome OS. So they're mostly going for Chrome.
This was not about Chrome OS, this was about the Chrome browser. They're implementing that in the browser layer.
Yeah.
I would not recommend the usage for Chrome OS for AI as well. I think we have to stay as a platform on Windows because most, let's say, these legacy apps are on Windows either way.
Yeah.
Would this mean the model is running locally on the machine then? Is that what they're proposing here? Like, or is it still sending off?
On the machine. They in the demo versions they had a 300 to 900 million parameter model, like a very tiny one. But I think since all the hardware is moving towards hosting AI models locally and the small models get more and more powerful, it may be interesting in that aspect if we head towards, hey, do we run all our AI on the cloud, or with the push Apple is doing, do we run all of AI on device?
I think we have a lot of benchmarks, which size of models can do what kind of agentic tasks. And I think it's currently, and I guess for the next 2 to 3 or 4 years, it's completely unrealistic to have anything run locally which can do actual hardcore work for you, which you don't have to oversight the whole day because you think it's fucked something up. So what you can run it locally if you have like an H100 GPU or whatever. But normal consumers will be on a phone or will have some M1 or M3 chips on a MacBook. So what you can run there is extremely stripped down models, which are highly highly quantized with, like, I don't know, int 4, int 8. Or very small models, like maybe 7 billion models if you have somewhat a GPU. But what we see is that you basically don't need to start for huge reliability and something you actually want to offload your task. Currently, you don't need to start below 300 billion tokens. So that's I think a realistic way to look at it currently. But obviously, smaller models will get better, and consumer hardware will get better.
Saying that, I don't have anything to show, but we spoke briefly before the new Chinese open source model GLM-4.5 was released this week by what they're now called as Z.AI, as they used to be called Zifu or something. And this is positioning itself as a high-end open source model, and it's it does reasoning and a hybrid model, targeting reasoning, coding, and agentic tasks. And it's 355 billion parameters. It uses a mixture of experts approach. I don't know what that is. I've just got it in my notes here.
Should I explain it?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay, so very briefly, this is not entirely factual and correct, but it's like a very rough explanation. A mixture of experts. Okay, when you usually prompt an LLM, it has basically like a huge, let's say a map, and the map is like really big just to navigate it. And mixture of experts is basically, in the beginning we have like a router which, depending on what comes in, decides which of these maps to use, and then for each generated tokens we just use a much smaller map. So that's the map is like the active parameters, and the total model size is like all the parameters. So since this is a 355 billion parameter model with 32 billion active parameters, means at a time only one of these let's say chunks can be active and process the data. And it's slow. It loses a bit of capabilities. But the huge advantage is that you have a very huge speed improvement, because instead of having to evaluate always with all the tokens, with all the parameters, you always work on with a subset, which is special, which is like the most likely to be correct for the kind of tokens you put in. And you models get trained that they roughly use all of the experts equally. That's a very simplified explanation.
I think I know what you're talking about, and I think I have a image for it somewhere. But yeah, it's sort of like a mini model that's kind of working a lot faster pace, while the larger model there is sort of understand or validating what it's done. I can't see it here.
Not exactly. It's the other way around. You have a router, and the large model issues a bunch of small models which get selectively activated.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, makes sense. So this is like, I mean, this, and you said you looked into this yesterday, right, Max?
Yeah.
As a potential, because you mentioned well, do you want to explain with what you're currently using, what model you're
So
currently using?
yeah, I mean, obviously we would need about more like 3 or 4 more zeros on the end of our bank account balance to train our own models. So we will eventually get there, but currently what is the easiest and fastest way for us is to post-train open source models. So post-training means we basically ignore a lot of the training, take an account that it will probably lose a lot of knowledge, but it can do what we want way better after that. So we currently use Qwen or QWen, whatever you want to call it, but not the news, like not the 3, but 2.5 VL, because we want vision. And but what we are currently exploring is maybe you can have some reasoning and planning without vision. So that's some experience internally currently. But when we look at the what was it called, the new model
GLM 4.5.
Yeah. GLM 4.5 is unfortunately not vision. The only GLM that is GLM 4, not without 5, 4V, that can input that can take vision input. And from that perspective, it could be interesting for us to fine tune it to get some reasoning done or task planning. But to go here and say, oh, we are way better with SO3 or Claude Opus is kind of an I mean, it's fine, the comparison, but it's like without vision. So if you don't have to support vision, you can basically throw out a lot of computation. You don't need to train for a huge new complex kind of task set. So in my I would say it's way easier if you do like them, just throw away vision and then say, okay, we train it all on text. It's obviously easier to outrun these multimodal models.
Yeah. Also, in regard to also GLM, there's a general issue that the old GLM-4, I run it locally. The issue is basically that it has like huge instabilities of the context size, so you cannot even get past 8,000 tokens and stay stable. It already starts to slowly break apart at 6,000. So
what do you mean with breakup? Like
basically, it's the model gets very irrational, and the recall like stuck in the needle, when just everything. If you look at the graphs, it's horrible. It goes downhill really quickly.
That's why 4 though, right?
Yeah, 4. 4.5 I didn't evaluate yet, but yeah, we have issues. As an example, the new Gwen 3 was also overbaked, where if you just train it with random noise data, it actually gets better again, because it was just so much fine-tuned, like basically overbaked if you like try to over-optimize it. That's also
unfortunately, I already got an SMS that I need to join the meeting.
No worries.
I need to get to the next one. Yeah, but yeah, a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the
input.
Yeah, see you hopefully sometimes in the future again.
Yeah, we'll speak soon. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Cool.
The other thing I haven't looked into it. Well, no, I have looked into it, but I can't confirm just yet. But I think it ranks. If you look here, it ranks really well. But this is on Chinese, like in Chinese as a language. Because I was looking at the LM Arena scores and I just couldn't find GLM 4.5. I didn't know where it was. And then I read somewhere or heard somewhere that it's these are Chinese benchmarks using Chinese language and things like that. So again, I heard you guys last week speak, and we've had this conversation a few times now about kind of who's winning this thing, and obviously open source models doing well. This is absolutely definitely a really cool direction it's going into, and something to get somewhat excited about. But I think the hype around this model isn't quite there yet, because it doesn't cater for Western language even,
To be honest, my bets are on QE2, because QE2 is basically the most promising thing currently on, let's say, in the open source space. I have not properly looked into GLM-4.5 to be honest, but generally tool call optimization is the A and O, and multi-language training is also really important. As an example, when DeepSeek back then was trained, they had two experiments. Where they trained in reasoning with instruct and once with base. And what was interesting is that, for example, the base version had like reasoning in multiple languages mixed. That also showed as an example that there are aspects of the German, of the English language, like Western languages, where we have like specific definition, or Turkish languages where you don't. I forgot what this was, but basically, like if you explain a state, it should explain it directly or something in that direction. I'm not entirely sure what it was, but generally, what I'm trying to say is languages have different setups and have different structures on how they, for example, identify objects, assign something to a value, explain what a state is, or if a state already has like a time fragment or not. And the thing is, what I think we will lead to is that we create an adapter between LLM and human language, and LLM state have their own language, which is highly optimized and, let's say, highly stateful. Because I think the language we have right now is like very you cannot really interpret it. As an example, in the German, we have the term umfahren, and it either means drive around or drive over someone.
Yeah. And it depends on the context.
Yeah, and even if how you say it.
Yeah.
Fahren oder fahren.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, true. It's one of the jokes with the German language, but it's also very interesting how these LLMs understand, or like there is some level of emergence that happens with these LLMs, even though they are not trained on some languages, they get an understanding of that language, and also how each word is, like, spatially speaking, in different languages are roughly in the same position. So that is also very interesting. But as somebody who speaks 4 languages and I speak all 4 of them every single day, I can definitely say there are times and times again every single day that I want to say something, and there is no equivalent for it in one of these languages, so I have to borrow it from the other. And an LLM understanding all of them, I can imagine it just gives it a little bit more understanding, or like what did you call it, like states?
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah I mean, I don't understand the technicalities, but I'm assuming that there's some layer, some sort of, like, you've got an LLM is trained in like a foundational based language, but then it's potentially got like a, for lack of a better word, like a tool call or something that transforms the input language to the language of the LLM or something. Like, how does it do translation? Or could you quite possibly, do you train it to translate? Like,
right now, how LLMs are trained is literally you give the language in, it converts it to tokens, and it just spits tokens out. It doesn't do any translation in between, or like it converts it to embeddings, which are like just the numbers basically. It does like convert it to numbers, and then it gives us numbers out again, and they get converted back to text.
And the way the translation works, it's based on how can it translate a word from German to English?
I think that's just literally training data where we have like an English text is translated to German, and then the LLM got trained on it, and then basically based on that it does the translation.
So does that mean if there is a word that there is no translation for it, it won't be able to translate it? Or is there a level of emergence that it gets an understanding for it, even though that direct word is not translated directly?
I think it's a mix of both. First, you have to think about these LLMs have dictionaries, they have translation documents, they have a lot of data which already tested how to translate it. But I think there's also a small part of an emergence where it basically can understand the context and then use that context to also basically finish the translation of, even if with words it doesn't know. As an example, an interesting thing is you can make up a word and tell the LLM to translate it, and if it has literally zero context about it, or if it's, let's say, a new like young slang, it cannot translate it. It just copies the word with name, like name by name, because it just assumes it's a name. I mean, if you think about it, what's the difference between a normal word and a name?
Well, we can do this with Kavarza, because Kavarza is a made-up name. It is a name which is made of 2 words in a way, and it doesn't exist in dictionary. But if you tell it to a Kurdish guy, and especially if you pronounce it with the separation a little bit, they will understand that, okay, that means that, even though it's not a word in dictionary. But something also to add to the translation, which came to my mind, is interesting. We are thinking of this translation in a word to word from a language to another. But what these LLMs have, they have tons of different languages and tons of different dictionaries. So theoretically, they can translate a word from a language to another through multiple languages in between. Even though there is no direct translation between, let's say, German and English for a specific word, but there is, for example, from German to French and from French to Spanish and then from Spanish to English. So that way they figure it out, because all of it is in a same vector space.
It's in the same vector space, but I don't know if that vector space will necessarily get invoked if you just ask it to translate something. Maybe with reasoning models, but I am right now a bit doubtful that it would happen with normal models as well. It really depends. The issue is we still don't really understand how models even work.
Yeah.
The question is, let's say the term house, right? In German it's Haus, in Turkish it's ev, or like home. The question is, how do you connect all of these terms? Like, how does the LLM actually generalize that all of these mean the same thing? That would be the thing we basically have to figure out, because then based on
Rosetta Stone.
Yeah. Like, what is a home? What is a house, and how does it understand it in a multicultural aspect?
Is there a language that is very? Let's just go right to the chase. Right? Is Chinese a really efficient language token-wise? Like, is it worth identifying a language that's like, it's the least amount of tokens? Fuck German, because German is like the least efficient language but like maybe Chinese is just a really from a token perspective. Yeah, what's that?
It's a design book called Grid Systems, Rastersysteme. It's in German and in English, both.
Yeah, it's twice as long in German, isn't it?
Not quite, but you see you can guess which column is German just by the length. Yeah. And the German words are longer, but that is such an interesting thing that you are talking about, because with German we also have this combination that you can make up any new word by combining multiple words together, and it's not like English. In English it feels like you're describing something with multiple words. In German it feels more specific because it's in one single word, and it's very pinned down.
And in LLMs it's again different, because even we have our 26 I don't know how many letters there are, like 26, I don't know, base letters. And the thing is, Chinese first of all has multiple variants. I'm not an expert on this thing, but for example in like I don't know if Japanese and Chinese is in that aspect same, but basically you have like basically specific letters. And let's talk about Japanese a bit. I have a little bit more knowledge about it. They have like 3 different let's say languages. You can like 2 different language variants, and they also have a lot of letter variants. Let's say with like the lines, and I just don't know, but you guys know what I mean. Like they have very many characters, and the thing is, even depending on how you pronounce a character, it can have a totally different meaning. Regarding efficiency, what we LLMs generally do is, when we tokenize, let's say, a sentence, right? We don't need to take the individual letters. We always talk word fragments. Let's say hell or like or, like letter combinations which appear often. We convert them to a token. So when you say token efficient, I'm not entirely sure, because we basically expand the 26 letters into many letters to have as many combinations as possible and fill up like a specific set of parameters, which is running nicely up to 64. And I think in that regard, it doesn't matter, like in the token range, it doesn't really matter which language you use. It more matters how stateful the language is, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I don't think it's what necessarily the language is doesn't matter. It's just like how this language grammatical and structural rules are constructed. I think that's the more important part. Not how many like say, base characters you have.
So it could be that German is in fact a very efficient language because there's so much state in one word. Or
Germans are efficient.
I would actually say for LLMs, German it may be efficient, but also may be inefficient because you have all of these complex words which are like unique, but then the LLM also has to learn all of them, and you have way less training data on each word. So the question would be like, how specific can you go before the LLM has too little context and just breaks apart?
Do LLMs face the same issue that we face with verbs in German that are
gender?
No, that they are in it's a verb made of two words or like two half words, and it can get separated. So it's pretty difficult to wrap your heads around it. But you start the sentence by using half of the verb, and then you use the other half of the verb at the very end of the sentence. And it's a long sentence. You get to the end of the sentence and you get to the end verb, and you ask, wait, what was the base of the verb? So and it's very separated. So I'm thinking, like, does something like this even matter for LLMs? Because
I don't think the LLM will have much difficulty with that, because basically during the training process, it's just like it within a sentence it weighs like which terms are important, which is not important, and based on that it generates its understanding. I don't think it matters much if it's like side by side or if they're spaced apart. Also, even if let's say we have a variant which is written together and a variant which is separated, what many tokenizers do, they have a word with a space in. So the variants without space and with space are two different tokens, and in the mind of the LLM, distinct words in that aspect.
Okay.
If you want, we could also forward the LLM tokenizer and just play around, and I can show you what I mean.
Oh yeah, you showed me once.
Can you search for Llama 3 tokenizer online? I can show them exactly what I mean with the space. This will take roughly a minute.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool to see. It's
and we even see the numeric representation as well.
I'm doing it my end so we can share the screen.
Yeah, you can. Oh, okay. Yeah, you have it.
Oh, yeah. So basically, write hello and then write hello together, and then write it once with a space.
So 4 tokens together.
Yeah.
Oh, still 4 tokens.
You see how the color of the token changes, because it's oh wait, does it also show which numbers these tokens are? Wait, let me check this website. No, let me open a different one. Search offline.
These are numbers here. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, these numbers, and if you show these numbers and now add the space. You see how the number changes? In the mind of the LLM, it's 2 distinct different tokens. And that's also means with like range efficiency. I mean, the entire term hello is 9906. Even if for us it's 5 letters, HELLO. And that's what I mean with like, it depends on the tokenizer how efficient the language is.
Yeah. Very cool. Right, let's go to a break, and we'll get back with some Claude Code agents.
Support for this episode comes from Flowbase. If you are building in Webflow, Framer, or Figma, Flowbase can help you build much faster. With over 4,000 components to choose from, you have a huge variety of wireframes and super clean, nicely designed sections that you can put together by just simply copy-pasting them to your project.
Over 15,000 icons as well, over 1,000 illustrations.
They also have a super helpful Webflow app called Boosters. With Boosters, you can add things like sliders and marquees and count-ups to your project with a few clicks and without any coding. So yeah, big thanks to Flowbase for supporting the show. If you want to try them out, go head to flowbase.co.
And just for you guys, I want to share a discount. Command Flowbase, all capitals, for 20% off any plan. This is a limited offer, so get in there early.
All right, that's it. Let's continue with the show.
All right, so Claude Code sub-agents, which I haven't used yet, but I'm particularly excited about. And these are basically pre-configured AI personalities that you can delegate tasks to inside of Claude Code. And each kind of, each I guess, agent has a specific expertise area, which is really cool. Uses its own context window. It's separate from the kind of main conversation. Can be configured using tools. If we have a look down here, we'll see the kind of structure here. You can give it access to specific tools or not if you don't want to. And you can like have it like do certain things and can be configured with a custom system prompt. So it just does really interesting stuff like with the prompt itself. You can configure it as well to be like in the project here, or as your user. So you might have one that you constantly run as a user, but then also ones that are very specific to a project. And it's just and you can chain sub-agents together as well. So this is a really, really cool addition to Claude Code, which I think is basically just the leader of coding right now. It's my favorite. I use it.
So now your AI agent has its own assistants. So if you are not failing enough, your AI has enough agents to fail double or triple. If you are not writing enough shitty code,
yeah,
have more.
I actually disagree. I think this will improve stuff.
Yeah, I saying it like jokingly. I think this is pretty cool, especially if they can check each other's work. Can they be critical of each other's work?
They can spin up their own sub agents, but I don't think they have their own context window, so they're kind of independent of well, it says they're independent of the main conversation. So maybe. Yeah, so this is a code. This is some example sub agents. So you've got a code review, so you can set up a code review agent to kind of just go off and do code review. So with every task, say you do a feature, then you have a code review agent. You've got a debugger agent. Well, they've got data scientists one here, and you can run all of these agents off as I guess a consequence of the thing that you've just done. So it always make sure it does an accessibility scan. Or the most interesting thing is that you can, obviously, if you've got something like Playwright, you can feed the design sub agent, you can feed in the image of the page, it can spin all that up and whatever. It's and to do all that just with, again, as a side effect of just one prompt is really cool. They talk about like the best practice here is that you start building with Claude. So basically you run /agents and then you tell it what it wants to do. So that's just a quick way to basically create the files, which, by the way, as with everything with AI, they're all markdown files. So once it's created the file, the folder structure, you can kind of go in then and then start adding, you could create the first sentence, but then you can go in and start adding a bunch of other stuff here. So yeah, start with the Claude generated, design focus sub-agents, create sub-agents with single clear responsibilities rather than trying to make one sub-agent do everything. So they're really trying to isolate your individual sub-agents to one specific task. Write detailed prompts, including instructions, examples, and constraints, the normal kind of stuff you would probably give an AI for context and things like that. Limit tool access, which I really like that you can limit the tool access. Again, you could say the design sub-agent only has access to Playwright and only has access to Magic UI or something like that. And yeah, check project sub-agents in version control so you can collaborate and stuff like that. But really, and here we go. Here's the chaining of sub-agents as well. It talks about. So it's a really cool addition to Claude, and I just think it's getting better and better.
I like the idea. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense.
Oh yeah, the thing is, I'm surprised they didn't have it yet, because that's fundamentally how we will go on about LLMs. LLMs, as we've seen with like fine-tuning everything, we can even fine-tune a very small model to be better than large models at a specific task. I think the end goal literally is later on, when fine-tuning is easier, we have literally LLMs fine-tuned on specific libraries, specific tools, and you use orchestration of first a composite LLM, and then let's say managed LLMs, like at a company, would then literally build it feature for feature, version for version. And I think the next step here actually is to even have LLM spin up, like duplicate the directory and have each LLM work on a different feature and then merge it again with like merge requests and have them work isolatedly. So I think this is the intermediate step we reached now to where we truly have like huge swarms of LLM agents working on multiple features concurrently and pushing them out quickly.
I mean, We've had variants of this. I think I've seen hacks that people have managed to get Claude Code to spin up its own sub-agents and whatever. Like people have hacked it to be able to do that. But we've also got things like Codex by OpenAI or Jules by Google, or I think GitHub's got one where they spin up agents in their own VM, which is its complete contextual, has its, in theory, has its own, as you were saying, its own instance of an LLM. You know, maybe you can define what LLM it's using, like a pre-trained LLM or something like that. So they're kind of like, we are figuring out like ways to like work, but I do like this idea, and especially as LLMs get cheaper, faster, and all the rest of it, that we can start to see what you're talking about, which is having dedicated LLMs that are just kick ass at copywriting or something like that. But this is just built in now, and there's no need to hack the system. There's there is like a minor hit on performance on this, like obviously with anything you start to like hit performance limits, especially as you're churning through those GPUs and forests that you have to do, because that
tests,
a few weeks ago they had a down, like Anthropic like literally was like, I was getting errors because they were just hitting those performance kind of things, which is probably in part because people were spinning off sub agents and whatever. Saying that as well, there's been some pricing updates to Claude where they are setting weekly limits. So, because again, just people are hammering their servers. Now, I watched a video today which kind of like made me feel a little bit better, but it was just a small channel. But he made a video on why you don't need Claude Max, and the long and short of it is less is more is a thing. I'll link it below because it's only a small channel, so you might as well support where we can. But like, I have the pro plan. I don't pay the $100. I don't pay the $200. I pay the $17 a month.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't code every single day. Like I'm not using it that much. So there is that aspect. But also, I understand I'm not reliant totally on Claude Code to write absolutely anything. And in fact, sometimes the plan, I'll ask it to plan and I will implement the plan. And, my knowledge of code is a lot better. And I see a lot of comments on loads of coding videos complaining about, things going wrong and this and that. And I can't help but feel like they are so dependent on the code, on the AI doing all of the work for them. That's all they've got to blame is the LLM, Claude or whatever it is that they're using, that things are going wrong and they're churning through their weekly limit in like no time at all. And it's like, it's because these tools are a crutch to you. You're not learning anything, and you're probably writing really inefficient prompts as well. But all that to be said is like, yeah, I'm chilling through the lowest tier plan of Claude and loving it. Like I really like Claude. It's my favorite model to use for coding.
In that regard, we also had a study regarding AI with the brain and that it makes, let's say, did you guys talk about that? With the study where it says LLMs make you dumber?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
I saw an analysis of that, and the interesting thing is LLMs generally make you dumber if you don't know anything about the topic. But let's say you're where we got a programmer. If you use LLMs, it actually even boosts your learning rate. And the thing is, what this generally teaches us is you need to understand what you're doing, because an LLM won't save you. But once you understand what you're doing and you use an LLM, it's going to boost your productivity by a fair margin, be it learning and be it actually creating software. Also, Samuel, one interesting thing I heard from you, use the LLM to plan the architecture and then implement it yourself. I actually do it the other way around. I plan the architecture, I literally tell it which feature to do it, which endpoints to write in detail, and I just let the LLM implement that. And that's an interesting thing on how people...
No, it's not something I do all the time, but that's just sometimes if I'm feeling like, it's like driving a manual car instead of an automatic car. It's like if I'm feeling like I want to code. But no, I think the way to what we're settling on from a coding perspective is you define your PRD, right? You define the actual structure of the function. You put a lot of time and energy into defining that and giving that to the LLM, as opposed to just add this feature, just a simple prompt to add the feature. So no, I absolutely do both. And I'm really experimenting with this approach of like how much context you need to give it or how much definition do I need to give it for it to do a good job, or how much can I backstep? Because realistically, everyone would want to take a complete backstep and just have the LLM figure it out for you. But like, we're definitely not there yet. And I think, a bit of a nudge is necessary. I'll do that method if I'm saying, how can I improve this file? Or what give me 3 examples or 3 ways I can refine this function, or something like that. And then, copy paste or implement it or whatever. It's more of a brainstorming, soundboarding exercise, as opposed to something I would always do.
So if you tell an LLM, so if you tell an AI something very generic, you become dumber. But if you say something very specific, you can actually learn from it. And every time you are too generic with your prompt, you also get something like really low quality. Like if you say make something beautiful, it doesn't really do a great job. It will give you something at best average. But once you know and you understand what is something beautiful or what is a great code architecture, you can hint at those specifics or literally tell it to apply those specifics, and then it can do them, and you can actually even ask for exploration. So one step above this would be to mention those specifics, but also ask for explorations or alternatives. But because you understand the basics, then you are talking in a whole different level with the LLMs, and you also get information that you might not had before, in opposed to be very generic and just ask it to build something, to write something very generic that you don't understand. So if you are specific and you are also trying to learn from these specificity, you can actually learn from LLMs.
I've actually been thinking about this dumb thing today, actually. And I was thinking, I think I read a comment somewhere or whatever. Someone did a review of probably Claude Code, because I watch loads of Claude Code stuff, but someone suggested using your voice, because I think a lot of people are using their voice to write their prompts to whatever. I actually find it quite hard, but that's neither here nor there. And someone said, you said to use your voice, but I don't know. Where do you turn? Where is that feature? Right. And they were looking, their brain is completely switched off, that they're looking for the feature to be given to them. When I translate that as, well, every single computer, every single phone has a dictation button. Like, you don't need to build a voice function to like type out a message, unless they meant like an interactive, like, response and whatever mode, like a whatever, I don't know what you call them,
conversation speech,
conversation mode. Yeah, every device has some sort of dictation. So that's what triggered this thought for me of like, why are people switching off when it comes to stuff like I think I sent a tweet out months ago that said something along the lines of, people aren't, I think it was someone looking for some sort of editing software or like some sort of a visual effects tool or something like that. And someone was looking, we're kind of like being conditioned to look for a SaaS tool or a SaaS product to do the exact thing we want. We've lost the abilities to sort of think, well, broken down, how can I achieve that with After Effects, with this or with that, right? And it's because of convenience. It's because we're being given this convenience aspect, and our brains just don't need to think, so we inevitably get dumber. And what is being dumber? I don't know. Maybe it's lazy. Maybe it's not being dumb. Maybe it's lazy. I don't know that. But all that to be said, there is the other aspect that we are just, well, we're just leveraging AI for what it is, but you will always get people. Now, design is an easy example, or even development. Now development is so easy. We're getting an influx of developers who have no ambition to learn how to code. And we're like there, like observing these people coming in and being like, oh, they're so lazy and this and that. It's because it's been democratized, and we're just getting people. You're always going to get people who are lazy or dumb or whatever coming into your industry. And it's easy for us to stand on our high horse and think like, oh, they're just stupid or this or that. All that to be said, you're always going to get people who just who don't let the tool make them stupid. They actually, as you say, allow it to make them smarter. They use it to learn. They use it to get better. So I think we're just it goes back to this idea of we're just a hyper connected world where we're now able to see people, or we're able to watch a video footage of someone being super stupid when they always existed. You know, you're always going to get these people who are lazy and dumb using the same sort of tools that we use. But yeah, I think it just comes down to just being super hyper connected. So who are we getting dumber? I just think that we're just being exposed to people who have always been there. They're just now entering our industry that we know a lot of, and all we can do is sit back and think that they're just being stupid.
Yeah. What we can definitely say is someone who was definitely lazy were the developers of the T app.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Good segue. Good segue.
Good one.
Because what
Go
happened?
for it.
Yeah, a very short summary. A T app is basically an app where girls could rate images of guys and write comments and give like green flags, red flags. I'm not 100% certain, but that's something roughly what I heard. And basically what they did is in Firebase OPC, and that OPC leaked 72,000 information about people.
Including messages and images
and location.
And location, pretty much everything.
I think IDs as well.
And what's also really, it's really bad because this app was made with the mission to help women or like protect women. It's essentially about rating bad guys in a way, or like be aware of bad guys in the dating world and talk about them. And you know, people have different opinions about it, but it was made for women to, you know, to help them in that way, but it actually hurt them.
It turned them into a target.
How did that happen? So apparently.
So it's important to say that this is, well, first of all, the CEO is a self-proclaimed CEO of a digital company who's only done 6 months of, you know, coding bootcamp, right? So he wore that with pride on his LinkedIn profile. But this is a breach that happened on all accounts that existed before February 2024. So any accounts that were created after that aren't affected by this breach. But ultimately, there was actually 2 breaches. It was a two-step program. The first one was that they found all of just the images, the verification images of the people. So when you sign up, you have to take a selfie of yourself holding your ID, and that verifies that you're actually a girl and that you're actually a human. And I mean, first of all, it was promised that those images would be deleted, but clearly not. But that's neither here nor there. That someone found it was a public bucket stored on Firebase. And because of the way the architecture of Firebase, it's kind of like an API and storage system built in. Normally on an app, you separate those. You have an API layer between the two. You never hit the database directly. But with Firebase, it allows you to hit the database directly. And if you hit a certain URL, it will list out all of the items in that bucket, which is something you can't do, or you shouldn't be able to do anyway. So what someone done, they found the bucket, and then they found an image, then reverse engineered that to be able to hit the bucket. They got their list of images and then just downloaded all those images. So that was the kind of first step of it. And then someone found the actual information on these people, and there was a few apps created. There was a location app, so they pinned everyone's location in North America to find out where they all live. And there was the funniest one, which, you know, I don't know how I feel about it, but is a website ranking these women based on how they look. And, you know, using
internet
these
is
images.
cruel, man.
Very cruel, very cruel.
Yeah.
And then there was a demographic one. I've even got the tweet here. Like someone put some demographics of the people, of the women that they found. You know, what this means is I'm not too sure, but the point is, it's that the internet had a lot of fun. As cruel as it was, the internet had a lot of fun with these. It was a bit of a lame apology, saying I've got the apology here as well, from the CEO
this a
saying
big
it's
company, or is it just that they happen to have tons of users?
I don't know the size of the company, to be honest. It's not like it was. Yeah, I don't know the size of the company. No idea, but it was doing okay. I mean, they had a wait list, but this is like
15,000 likes.
Yeah, I know, but like you say that as if like, I mean, this is now they've been exposed, right? So they're probably a lot bigger now than they were, to be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, like, people are liking the apology, meaning that.
Oh, I see. Well, this is the thing, and we won't go more into it, but this is the thing with the downvote button when on YouTube. What are they downvoting? Are they downvoting or even upvoting? Are they downvoting the idea of the video? The video is perfect, actually. It was well presented, but are they downvoting the idea of the video that the creators have nothing to do? You just don't know. So you can only speculate that they don't necessarily support the apology. Maybe they just find it funny, so they like it. People, whatever. But the most interesting, sorry,
it looks low effort. The image.
This is their vibe, though. This is their vibe. Okay. I don't know whether it's like. I know what you mean. I would tend to agree, but you can tell their design is a bit brash and whatever. But this is the interesting thing. This data was stored to meet law enforcement standards around cyberbullying prevention. It doesn't say anything about what's the ISO standard. It didn't say anything about like data protection or anything like that. So yes, maybe I don't know how you'd store an image to prevent cyberbullying. Maybe that is simply that another user cannot access your imagery through their account. Maybe that's what that means. But cyberbullying prevention isn't a well-established standard in the internet world, which prevents the hacking of data. That's why the ISO standards are in place. So yeah, it's a bit of a clusterfuck, to say the very least. And there was speculation as well that it was a vibe coded app, obviously, because it's like in the midst of all this vibe coding like slop that's being put out. But again, because this is pre-2024, like February 2024 users, that this definitely wouldn't have been a vibe coded app. But I want to try and find the CEO's name.
And while you're at that, I could point a different topic. I would not say this is a specific issue to T. I think this is a general issue with Firebase. Theo made once a video about Eva. She's cybersecurity specialist, and she once ran a scraper through the entire web and found like 6 million affected Firebase in that sense with some kind of security issues where you could access the data. And it's like people just don't know how to use Firebase, and Firebase is like a gun which easily lets you shoot in the foot.
It's true. Like, I've never liked Firebase. There was a lot of comments as well about the fact that Firebase pesters you because it's not trivial. Well, it is trivial, I guess, but like it warns you several times that this is wide open. You haven't got security rules and things like that. It's not a great platform for proper app development. Like I say, it allows you to access the database directly, but there are security rules in place. And this was it last year that there was because you have to put the API keys in the front end of your website.
Yeah, and you have basically like security rules where you write a JavaScript-like syntax. It's not JavaScript; it's just a JavaScript-like syntax, and then you have to write security rules. And these can be a bit more complicated because you have to check against the user ID and I have to check, does you have access to this resource? And it's like, just have a server.
Yeah. It's not. I never liked those security rules. Here's a question. I was wondering, why is Supabase any different? Because I can access the database directly from the front end. I don't need to have some sort of API layer to query the database. Are you familiar with Supabase? Have you used Supabase?
A bit, but the reason why I like Supabase more is generally, from what I know, I may be wrong on this, but from what I know, you still can easily deploy functions with Firebase. If you want to deploy functions, you have to then go to Google Cloud and do everything. Like it generally, doing things properly takes a bit of more work. That's why I first like Firebase more. I don't use Firebase much. The second thing is, if I recall correctly, in Firebase you have more security, like generally, and it's like harder to shoot yourself in the foot. I may be wrong on it, but from what I recall, they generally have just better security.
Well, you've got the functions aspect, but like again, I can just query the database, and you use policies to like prevent, and Firebase has its own interpretation of policies and things like that. But the point is like I can access Supabase in the same way that I can access. I don't need to go in through any sort of API layer. Saying that, I can't find the CEO. Maybe he's taken his account down or something. But
Wayback Machine.
His name's Cook. T CEO.
He cooked himself.
Did he cook? He did.
Yeah. But
Sean Cook only has 6 months coding experience under his belt. Sean Cook. That's what was I gonna say? Oh, saying that, yeah, like I'm using Comet now, and one thing what I'm finding frustrating, which I know we keep talking about, like SEO is dead, but sometimes I literally just like sometimes because you've got the unified search bar, I just want to find the website, or I just want to go to the website, or see, like, I want a list of websites. I don't want the summary. So I'm having kind of like a reverse kind of like, I know traffic is dying, which is what you guys said last week. Here we go. But I'm also finding it sometimes, more often than I care to admit, it's weird. I'm actually wanting a traditional, just give me a list of websites, or give me, like, I don't want the summarization. What the hell is going on?
Been there with Dia as well. Sometimes, not too often. I give it, especially if I give it a long URL, instead of Google searching it, it starts to reason and try to understand it. No, I don't want.
What I usually do is I just use ChatGPT with O3 and I say, hey, make me research about this topic and give me a list and list your sources, and then it always says after each like link the source, and you can just click it and go to the page. So
that's what I've done. Yeah, that's what I do. I just click on sources now, which is just an extra step, because sometimes it's like, I sort of know what it is that I want, and I'm expecting like a website. I've got a bloody sign in now. But yeah, I want to try and get used to the kind of whole background thing. Like Sean Cook 1, he is the first one. This guy. So maybe I think he's taken it down. He had in his thing here, he said like 6 months of coding under his belt, which he probably did not develop this app. Let's be clear. Like, I just think that was just being taken wildly out of context because it's whatever. But
so this is one way of becoming famous.
Sorry?
This is one way of becoming famous.
Maybe it was all a plan. Maybe it was...
Make a super bad app, not secure at all, and you'll be famous.
I mean, there's tons of them out there. And as you said, like again, last year, there was so many breaches from just specifically the ruling around Firebase apps and the databases and object storage and stuff like that. It's just so clunky and easy to miss. Not easy to miss, but just like, most people just like leave it open or whatever. So yeah, there's tons of apps out there. I think this was just, I honestly think there's a touch of misogyny in why this blew up as well, because first of all, it's like with the tech world, we're ruled by guys, so it was easy for us to be, whether you have your own personal opinions on this type of app, but there are don't sleep on the fact that there are so many apps being breached, so many massive apps. One massive one was very recent. I've forgotten what it was, and it might even be like a cybersecurity app or something. But the point is, this happens an awful lot. So why this one's picked up a lot of steam, I think, is the misogyny aspect.
Yeah, true. I mean, this is quite. If somebody wants to ride on that wave, could make an app for the guys, and probably somebody already has, or doing this. You know what I mean?
I'm starting Claude Code.
What do we call it instead of like tea?
We call it Sushagab.
Coffee.
Well,
isn't it the name is about like spill the tea? Like that's what you'd say is spill the tea.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
We dropped the handlebar.
We
dropped the handlebar. Yeah. Do you know, I haven't been keeping an eye on comments, so I'm just trying to.
You can make an app to do the rating, just exactly the same, but it's for the guys.
Yeah.
It's for men.
Lift up or lift down.
But for real, like on waves like this, you could easily, make it into news.
Oh yeah, no, it's a catastrophe, to be honest. But that was a funny segue, because all we've got now is Cursor to talk about, and I was even considering removing it because it was a little bit boring. But we do have a new version of Cursor that's been released. Shared agent terminal, context usage statistics, which is something Claude Code always had. I'm happy to see it in. I'm trying to get the Twitter thread, which is good here, so you can understand how many tokens you're using and the context size and stuff like that, and speed improvements to agents. So that's Cursor 1.3. Nothing too interesting there.
Yeah,
but that is the week's news.
This week, not too many things happened in the AI world.
Well, we are a day early, and true to form, I bet a bunch of stuff will happen tonight, or probably happened whilst we were on this stream. Because I thought it started off really quiet, and I was like, oh man, we've got like an earlier thing and nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden, the browser starts, which I thought was quite good, because obviously we had Max on earlier from Warman. I would have hoped that we would have had more chance to speak to him about sort of like, certainly from a security aspect as well. We could have probably gone into the security aspects whilst talking about T and stuff of having and being signed into Warmwind on, a far away machine somewhere. But as it is, these people are very busy, so all good.
Yeah, what would interest me really with that app is concurrency, because let's say they advertise like customer support and everything, but how do you manage which agents which open which email? Because if I have 5 agents and they're all logged into email and the mail comes in, which agent takes over? Do you need to have some kind of scheduler, and you need to somehow specialize it for an application? Imagine I have like agents and I tell them, hey, build me a Webflow website. And now imagine they both open the same project and try to work concurrently, and then they try to modify the same component. It's like a lot of these things can happen, and you also need to have some kind of orchestrate the agents so they don't run into each other. And even in companies, it's difficult. How do you do it with, let's say, high-speed agents who try to touch everything? Because LLMs are touchy these days.
Yeah.
Interest. Yeah. But speaking of Webflow was down this week
oh my god, yeah.
Had
the
outages.
1 week I actually get hired, to actually do something in Webflow, it's just been I thought it was just me. I thought, I've just a new machine and this and that, but it's been really, really bad.
Yeah. So we had a few, not just one, apologies from the CEO. So Webflow is acknowledging this, and it's apparently one of their data providers. And they specifically said it's not because of making new features. It's not caused by new features. It's just data.
But they don't
provided
know
to
what
the
it
feature.
is, though. They don't
Well,
know
they
what it
said
is.
they are investigating, and they are back online mostly, but they are still looking. But I think they generally know what it is not. For example, it's not because of the new features that they are adding.
Yeah, because people speculated it was it was
Yeah.
actually Christian specifically speculated that it might have been the multiplayer feature they added. You know, I noticed it as soon as I started playing with Webflow Cloud, and this sort of like, is it a Webflow Cloud thing? Because I literally, no word of a lie, probably spent about 4 hours, maybe even more, recording a tutorial yesterday because I just had to wait, and builds kept failing, and like back end wouldn't load and stuff like that. I eventually got it recorded, but yeah, it was very painful. And then I had a job that I actually had to do, but they fixed it in time for this job, actually, to be fair. But
yeah, apparently Framer had an incident as well. So it wasn't just Webflow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, maybe probably it wasn't that big. It didn't get, talked about too much, but Framer had an incident as well.
Interesting.
And Webflow mentioned about the sort of back end partner. I think they're just on AWS. I can for sure guarantee. Well, maybe not. I can't guarantee, but I'm pretty sure it's not AWS.
But
what I know, they use AWS.
They do use AWS, but they also use other tools. They have tons of other services, and if one in the chain doesn't work, they get into these troubles. But that was the news for Webflow, or like the big news of the week. And what I found interesting, people were really frustrated and very emotional about it. I get it. It happened to me as well. But it was nothing so bad that I couldn't open something. But I did run into some loading issues, but not to the point to, like I saw on Twitter, people were quite emotional about it.
You're at the end of the day, you're paying a premium for a service, and like people do, like, I don't know. I definitely see both sides. I saw Joseph Berry saying, we should be, everyone has their bad days. And whilst, that's a really nice, admirable mindset to go into this stuff with, or to calm yourself down. At the end of the day, they're literally costing you and or losing you money. And you pay for this sort of reliability, resilience of an app. So I just sort of see both sides of it. And, it's one of the reasons. I think I've made a video on this. I've seen Rand make a video on this. One of the reasons why you wouldn't choose Webflow is because if something goes wrong with Webflow, your business is down. Like, this was the thing that you signed up for. If you did your due diligence before you signed up to Webflow, you would have watched one of our videos, and we would have told you you are signing off a lot of your responsibility, or the reliability of you being able to do your work to Webflow, and they let you down.
So the thing with that is, in my mind, it's a bullshit argument, and I'm a developer who doesn't deploy anything in Webflow. I just got everything on my own and host my own VPS. So the thing is, at the end of the day, you're always reliable on something. If you don't, if you're on AWS, you're reliable on that. If you have your own VPS, you're reliable on that. You're reliable on that your operating system updated correctly, that the browser works, that your internet provider works. There's so many dependencies everywhere, and Webflow is badly said just one more where you like combine a couple of providers into one. I mean, if Webflow goes down, it's shitty, but if your VPS provider goes down, you have the same kind of issue. It's like,
I mean, if you were on WordPress and it was last year, well, was it last year?
Yeah, last year.
We haven't forgotten that yet.
And do you know what? Because they overtook, WordPress overtook advanced custom fields, right? Just took it.
It's insane.
And I actually I was like, you know what? I use advanced custom fields. I'm going to stay on advanced custom fields. And then I found out the literally just this week, found out the repeater, which is a paid for feature on advanced secure custom fields, which is what they call it now. It's free on there. So I've just updated it to secure custom fields. It's like, we're so like, if something's free or whatever, like we'll be easily convinced otherwise. But
Yeah, so there is drama and vulnerability in any tool that you use across the internet, no matter where.
Yeah.
It's just with Webflow, it's a case of, honestly, I would say it's bad luck. I don't think that they are.
They've been stable.
Yeah.
Okay, they had sometimes connectivity issues. They've been mostly stable. Like they have a very high uptime, but the development tool's been occasionally unstable. But the uptime is important. That it's just always accessible.
Yeah, I mean, even WhatsApp and Facebook, they have billions of users. They have downtimes. Like
I don't think I know.
People. Go on, sorry.
I don't think I know of a single tool in my lifetime which never had an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discord,
I think it's because people's businesses operate from Webflow. That's the problem. Businesses operate, people are earning money. Like, it's not just WhatsApp. I mean, in theory, your wife could be giving birth and you want to try and call her on WhatsApp, but like, you know, you could
with Webflow, it's like also that you are paying for the service, and there is also a service level that, you know, the 99%. I wonder how it was for the enterprise. I don't know anything about that. If the site was also down, the dashboard was down for enterprise as well, because that is where I assume Webflow is making a lot of money, and that would be really bad to hurt the relationship that they have with their clients.
I have seen nothing about dedicated, you know, servers for enterprise.
No, but they have a different service level agreement with
guaranteed SLA.
Yes,
exactly. But that agreement might not.
So the typical website that you have is a 99.9% uptime guaranteed, but with enterprise, I believe they add guaranteed 2 more nines to the end.
We're also mixing
uptime.
Yeah, because we're sorry that I stopped you, but we're mixing two topics up. We have uptime of the website and uptime of the editor.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
And update of the editor was impacted, not from the website, from what I know.
Yeah, the websites were online, but the editor being affected had one like really huge issue. That was, even if you could enter the designer and design something and change something, you could not publish it. The publishing was also affected, and from what I've seen online, what pissed people off, because they were making the changes very difficultly with a lot of difficulty. They were making the changes, but then they couldn't publish the changes. Well, it should be fine now. A funny thing is, like, if you are a Webflow user and hit that issue, you theoretically could use a similar tool to Webflow. But with so many other tools, if you hit some issue like this, you cannot like switch tools as easily because of the proprietary technology.
Yeah, I mean, vendor login is the thing with everything. I mean, with even VS iOS and Android, VS, let's say, all of these website builders, VS, let's say, your VS Code with your favorite extensions, you're always logged into something. Be it with the, let's say, US currency, like there's always a login. It's just like which system brings you the most advantages, and if something goes wrong, which disadvantages you have. And if you're honest, on the last note, basically, whatever the tools you use are in your hand, and it's always your decision about how much money am I willing to spend versus comfort versus security and general risk. And that's a calculation one has to do for themselves.
Yeah,
very true. Cool. All right, let's wrap it up there. Unless you've got any more news items in your back pocket there, Kabaza.
Not this week was building our Webflow app. So,
ooh, how exciting! Is that why you're all together?
Yeah, he's developing the Webflow app, and we should be ready to publish or like have our first version in a few days. And we have like exciting things to share. We are building like cool components. Today we had a call with a 3D developer, so we'll have like multiple cool things to share in our app.
You'll be the news next week. Just be you.
I'll be gone by then, sadly. This was my last time I was here with him. I leave on Sunday.
Oh, where are you going back to?
Home. Work is calling.
He also lives in Germany, so
I guess that.
The accent's
a dead giveaway.
He lives like
food.
5 years, 5 hours away.
Yeah,
5
I have to
Light
use the
years.
time machine to travel back home.
Yeah,
Yeah,
5 years. My brain is just in space and thinking of light years. You know.
You need
Yeah.
kids supporting after the stream.
Yeah. No, we need to finish the app.
True.
Wow, it was good to have you 2 weeks in a row, Ekut. So yeah, I appreciate you stepping in and giving your perspective. It was good to have someone who actually deals with the code side of LLMs and actually talk us through what a tool call is. Cool. All right, guys. Well, yeah, good luck with the launch, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah. Well.
Speak to